Okay, we have got a feature-length episode for you today. I was going to put this into 2 videos, but I'm just so excited to hit level 60 because when we do, we're going to start live streaming our farming sessions. If you want to get notified of when I go live, hit that subscribe button, or you can go to my Twitch channel in the description. So without further ado, let's get straight into the episode.
I've been expecting you.
Welcome back to the World of Warcraft's Pacifist Challenge. And if you're new to this series, we're leveling from 1 to 90 in Mists of Pandaria Classic as a true pacifist. No attacking, no killing, using only professions and exploration. It's been an incredible journey of discovery, optimisation, and yes, the occasional shameful misclick. I have a confession that's going to shock you to your core. After countless hours of complete pacifism, I broke my vows and I attacked something. Let me tell you the story of what happened and how my moment of greatest shame led to one of our greatest discoveries. We're also diving deep into profession optimisation, abandoning mining for something far more profitable, and I'll show you exactly how to turn basic herbs into serious gold through the power of Inscription. Last episode we systematically tested 5 zones to find the best gold farming spots for level 30 to 40 characters, with the Cape of Stranglethorn taking the crown at 730 gold per hour. Today we're picking up at level 39, moving into higher level territories, and I'm going to show you exactly why sometimes the best strategy involves completely changing your approach. Our first destination was Western Plaguelands, and I immediately understood why this zone has maintained its reputation as a top-tier farming location. The key to success here, like everywhere else, is understanding the terrain and sticking to the zone edges, where mob density is lower and ore density is higher. Initially, the enemies felt overwhelming. Everything here hits harder than what we're used to, and the creatures have unpredictable patrol patterns. But after mapping out several routes and learning where to avoid, Western Plaguelands became surprisingly manageable. Here's where our profession split really became apparent. Mining in this zone is genuinely problematic. Ore nodes consistently spawn near hostile mobs, and because we can't eliminate threats, we have to rely entirely on stealthing and positioning. The issue is that mining takes longer than herb gathering, so even if you think you're safe, mobs can path towards you and interrupt the action. It's incredibly frustrating to spend time reaching a node only to be forced to abandon it. Herbalism, on the other hand, is absolutely delightful in Western Plaguelands. The zone offers incredible variety in both herb types and growing environments. Kingsblood thrives in open grassland, Fadeleaf grows in turned soil around farms, and Khadgar's Whisker prefers growing its trees. Since Western Plaguelands has all these terrain types in abundance, you can harvest multiple herb varieties without travelling far between nodes. The herb density in open areas is phenomenal. You'll find entire fields scattered with Fadeleaf, making for incredible efficient gathering routes. We also have blindweed and lifefruit growing along riverbanks, but after testing a few routes that included these areas, I found that they weren't really worth the detour for optimal efficiency. Since I was already level 40, I could immediately explore Eastern Plaguelands as well. This zone contains higher level herbs like sungrass and more Khadgar's Whisker, but comes with a significant cost. Eastern Plaguelands is absolutely crawling with roaming beasts and undead. The mob density makes mining virtually impossible, because there's simply no safe approach to most ore nodes. Even herbalism requires constant vigilance and careful routing to avoid the patrols wandering through the zone. After several frustrating attempts to make mining work in these conditions, I made a decision that would reshape our entire approach. I returned to Orgrimmar to reassess our strategy. First, I smelted all of our accumulated iron ore into steel bars because these sell for significantly more than raw ore and in higher quantities. After that, I made the call to drop mining entirely. This wasn't an easy decision, but the math was clear. In higher level zones, mining nodes are consistently more dangerous to access than herbs, take longer to gather, and provide less experience. With our focus shifting towards efficiency and gold generation, specialisation made more sense than struggling with two professions. The question became, what profession should replace mining? Let's examine our options. Skinning and leatherworking were immediately ruled out. We can't kill mobs to skin them. Tailoring faces similar limitations since most cloth is dropped from slain creatures. Blacksmithing, jewel crafting and engineering would all be pointless without the mining to support them, so that only left alchemy and inscription as viable options. While alchemy can be profitable, it typically requires current expansion recipes to generate serious income, and we're not going to be reaching that content for quite some time. Inscription, however, offers consistent profit potential across all level ranges. I've always enjoyed Inscription as a profession. There's something genuinely satisfying about the milling process to me. The RNG element of getting rare pigments feels rewarding, and the variety of useful items you can create appeals to players across all level ranges. Unlike alchemy, where old expansion recipes become largely obsolete, Inscription products maintain their value because of glyphs, and other such items that integrate well with the current content. The economic advantage is also substantial. Pigments, inks and glyphs sell for significantly more than raw herbs, probably because most players don't want to invest the time in manual milling and are willing to pay a premium price for the convenience. Even in Mists of Pandaria Classic, where you have to manually mill each herb with individual clicks rather than batch processing like in retail, the profit margins justify the time investment. The downside is that processed goods sell much slower than raw materials. According to Trade Skill Master data, 500 sungrass might sell daily on the auction house, while only 15 pigments and 20 inks would sell in the same time frame. This creates an interesting trade-off. There's roughly 5 times the profit potential, but significantly longer wait times for sales. Since I'm not in a rush and our challenge emphasises long-term sustainability over quick-term games, this seemed like a perfect fit. I purchased some low-level pigments to boost my inscription skill high enough to mill the current herbs. Yes, I too am too lazy to farm my own starting materials, the irony isn't lost on me. I then developed a conversion strategy. I decided on a roughly 5 to 1 to 1 ratio, herbs to pigments to inks, while creating one of each available glyph. So from approximately 1,000 herbs, I would leave around 500 sungrass as raw material, and then I'd mill down until I had 100 violet pigment, 100 celestial ink, and one of each of the 22 glyphs that those materials could produce. The reasoning behind this diversification is market stability. If I converted everything to celestial ink, I could wait months for it all to sell, but having a variety of products, items move faster, and I avoid flooding individual markets, which helps maintain healthy pricing. That's the theory, at least. I milled and crafted the variety of items, listed them on the auction house, and settled in to see whether reality would match expectations. While waiting for our inscription experiment to play out, I decided to explore Tanaris, a zone I remember fondly from Original Classic. This turned out to be a massive disappointment though. Tanaris has absolutely terrible node density. I completed a full circuit of the entire zone and found exactly 8 herb nodes. That's fewer herb nodes than you'd find around a single farm in the Plaguelands. For a zone of Tanaris' size, the density is completely unacceptable for my farming purposes. Disappointed but not discouraged, I returned north to continue Plaguelands farming, where I knew the herb density would support our efficient gathering. To maximise variety and efficiency, I developed a route that encompassed both eastern and western Plaguelands in one large circuit. This provided excellent herb density, particularly for Khadgar's Whisker, which spawns in both zones, and according to my money looter add-on, I was pulling in roughly 550 gold worth of raw materials per hour. My hope was that Inscription would transform this into 1,000 or 2,000 gold per hour once the processed goods sold, but that's going to require patience to verify. The combined Plaguelands route quickly became one of my favourites, ranking alongside Cape of Stranglethorn for pure enjoyment. Once I'd refined the path through sufficient data collection, it felt intuitive and natural. The herb density was excellent, and the landscape variety between the two zones kept the farming visually interesting. I continued this routine until hitting level 45, at which point I noticed the experience from herbs like King's Blood was dropping off sharply, so it's time to explore new territories. Wanting to maintain levelling pace and test new farming opportunities, I took the Goblin Rocket from Light's Hope Chapel to Fuse Light in the Badlands. This zone started out challenging, as they all do. The rocky terrain and aggressive mobs made route planning difficult, but after several circuits I developed a solid grinding path through the southwestern scar and around the outer edges. Everything was progressing normally until something horrific happened, and I feel I have to confess this to you. Whilst I was attempting to gather a herb in the Badlands, there was a dragon whelp positioned directly on top of the node. When I right-clicked instead of targeting the herb, I attacked the whelp. I can still see that white combat text burned into my memory. My auto-attack connected, dealing a stomach-churning 11 damage. For the first time in around 35 hours of gameplay, I'd broken my pacifist vow. I know it didn't provide any advantage or really break the challenge rules, it was just a genuine misclick, but I've been so proud of maintaining perfect pacifist statistics. My character sheet had previously shown a clean dash where damage dealt should have displayed a number, but it was now permanently tainted. I can only apologise to you, the viewers, and to that poor dragon whelp who, even though he had 3,000 health and was consistently attacking me, it still felt like I'd failed the challenge in some small way. But I'm not abandoning this challenge. It was an honest mistake that any player could have made. But I felt that the Badlands had become spiritually tainted by this failure. So I teleported to Moonglade to meditate on my shame. And this moment of failure led to the best possible outcome for our challenge. You see, Moonglade sits in northern Kalimdor, an area we hadn't yet explored, but it connects through Timbermore Hold to Felwood, and it turns out Felwood is an absolutely incredible place to farm herbs. Felwood offers everything we're looking for: high herb density, manageable mob situations, and most importantly, higher level herbs that provide better experience and auction house value. The zone feels like it was designed specifically for herbalism, with the nodes scattered throughout in logical, accessible patterns. The variety of herbs available in Felwood is impressive, and the spawning patterns creates efficient farming routes that don't require constant backtracking or dangerous mob encounters. After the frustrations of mining in the Plaguelands and the disappointment of Tanaris, Felwood feels like discovering a treasure. So as we approach the end of the Old World content, I'm going to establish some clear criteria for moving on to the next expansion. We do learn Flight Form at level 58 and we can access the Dark Portal then, but I'm going to say we have to hit level 60 to fully complete Old World WoW. We also need to get both of our main skills up to 300. The Inscription experiment's still playing out on the auction house, but early signs suggest the profit margins will justify the time investment in processing raw herbs into finished goods. Today's video is also going to include another layer of the challenge that I've alluded to before, a completely pacifist cooking challenge. That's right, we're going to try to level cooking to maximum using only violence-free recipes. No fish, no meat, just pure baking and brewing progression. The rules are simple: we can only use recipes that don't include meat or fish. So I of course started with spice bread, combining simple flour and flavoured spices, basic ingredients that require no animal products and that we can buy from any cooking vendor. This got us to skill level 65 pretty quickly. From there, the herb baked egg pushed us to 85. Here's where it gets challenging though. At skill level 85, the available meat-free recipes become extremely limited. Most cooking progression assumes you'll be using fish and meat from slain creatures, which obviously violates the challenge. But I'm not giving up. There are several alternative paths forward. Daily cooking quests provide 1 skill point each, plus they give Epicurean awards that unlock higher level recipes. The Darkmoon Fair also visits every 2 weeks and offers a cooking quest that gives 3 skill ups. I know there are world events like Harvest Festival, Feast of Winter Vale, and Pilgrim's Bounty that provide exclusive meat-free recipes. I also think that Brewfest might have some brewing recipes that fall into the cooking profession, but I honestly can't remember. But as it's just around the corner, and so is Harvest Festival, I'm going to wait until then to really go hard on the cooking challenge, but in the meantime, I'm going to be doing my cooking dailies and going to Darkmoon Fair whenever I can to get as many skill ups as possible. This is a marathon, not a sprint after all, and proving that pacifist cooking is viable will add another unique dimension to our challenge. So with cooking simmering in the background, I focus primarily on our levelling strategy. Felwood proved even better than our initial testing suggested. I also tested Ungoro Crater and Silithus, but neither came close to the herb density and accessibility of Felwood. Felwood is a brilliant zone. The path is similar to Cape of Stranglethorn, where it's fairly obvious that you just need to do a big loop around the zone, coming off at a few alcoves from time to time, and there's also these meteor sites where there are a variety of demons patrolling the area, and these zones seem to be absolutely full of herbs. I couldn't really work out the best route to pick up all the herbs, but I just found that a zigzag back and forth was very efficient. I also went back and looked at how much gold we'd been making from Inscription, and to be honest, I was disappointed. The theoretical value of the Inscription materials was very high, but the sale rates of them were so low that I was only getting a few sales a day, and sometimes not even that. And given the amount of time that it was taking to mill down the herbs, to craft the glyphs, and then to repost everything on the auction house, I wasn't enjoying it, and I decided that I'd rather return to mining and just be a pure jewel gathering character. This challenge was never about making gold, it was just a fun little side challenge, but as long as it follows the rules, I'm always going to prioritise having fun over efficiency, gold making, or anything else. This challenge is about taking it slow and enjoying the game. So I made the call to return to mining. Yes, it provides less experience per node, but the mined minerals do sell quickly and at decent prices, so sometimes the reliable choice trumps the theoretical optimal choice. Now, dropping Inscription for mining meant that I had to really catch up with the mining. I did some smelting to get our mining to a point where we could still mine in Felwood, and then I returned to the zone and I just knuckled down and hit the challenge hard. Felwood became my second home. I was doing constant loops, methodically collecting herbs and ore, whilst watching my experience bar slowly but steadily fill up. After a bit of time, when we hit level 50, I decided that we could go into Winterspring. The mobs here would be level appropriate and there would be some higher level herbs. Winterspring was a really lovely place to grind. The scenery was really visually pleasing, and I found that there were quite plentiful herb and ore nodes all throughout the zone. Not wanting to have things be too monotonous, I came up with a Felwood Winterspring circuit, similar to what we did in the Plaguelands, where I would go all the way around Felwood, then all the way around Winterspring and back again. This diversity in the zone that we're farming in just keeps things interesting. It makes the route feel longer and therefore doesn't feel like we're just repeating the same thing over and over. And because we're not using online guides, there was a lot of time spent exploring those zones, understanding the routes, and just enjoying visiting places that I might not have otherwise leveled in. So let's sit back and let's just appreciate the beautiful scenery here and also get some level ups in. And then it happened. After countless hours of peaceful gathering, careful route optimization, and unwavering dedication to our pacifist principles, we dinged level 60. The sense of achievement was incredible. Given the difficulty and time investment, it genuinely felt like hitting max level in Original Classic. But level 60 wasn't just a number. We unlocked both Flight Form and the Master's Flight License. These were game-changing abilities that meant we could fly in both Outland and the Old World. And this was something I'd been anticipating since the beginning of this challenge. Combining Flight Form with Feline Swiftness and our Boot enchant meant we were now moving at a massive 275% movement speed. We haven't seen any improvement in our movement speed since level 16, so this was a massive win for us. Reaching 300 in both professions proved easier than expected. Herbalism capped early in my journey, and I was surprised to discover that I could continue gaining skill points well beyond 300. I reached 390 before the herbs turned grey and stopped providing skill ups. Mining followed a similar pattern. I smelted some thorium bars, and by gathering some last thorium veins in Winterspring, I hit skill level 300 before we even hit level 60. So with both of those things achieved, we're now ready to head into Outland. But before that, I want to look at our economic situation. The Inscription experiment failed largely due to market realities. Our processed goods simply aren't selling at any reasonable rate, which is forcing us to undercut significantly just to move inventory. This is partly because few players want low-level materials this early in the expansion, and partly because our realm, Mirage Raceway, has only about 2,600 players compared to larger servers like Gahanus, with 21,000 plus. The smaller population means limited demand for niche products. I looked into transferring to a higher population realm, but despite having what appeared to be a free transfer in the shop, it wasn't actually usable for characters on our current realm. It was just a tease from Blizzard. So we'll stick with our current realm for now and just focus on raw trade goods that move quickly rather than the processed items which can spend weeks clogging up our mailbox. Despite these setbacks though, we have accumulated over 10,000 gold, and we haven't been stingy with spending either. I've bought items and bags as much as I need, purchased our riding upgrades, so I think this is a really significant achievement for pacifist gameplay, especially considering we're not farming current content. To improve this efficiency, I did create a mailbox alt to handle auction house operations. This meant we didn't have to constantly travel to and from Orgrimmar to repost our items. And yes, don't worry, this alt is also dedicated to pacifist principles. They'll only be used for banking and auction house activities, and they too will never attack. I want to take a moment as well to tell you that I plan on live streaming our farming sessions very soon. The reason that we're having this mega episode now is because the first live stream is actually planned for this Saturday starting at 10 AM, and it'll be a challenge stream, so we'll be going for a few hours. It'll be scheduled on Twitch and YouTube, so you can see what time that is in your time zone. If that's something you'd be interested in watching, then make sure you're subscribed, and then you'll get a notification when I go live. I'll also be streaming on Twitch, and I'll leave the link in the description, or you can just go to twitch.tv/TomlinWow. I'll be live on both platforms, so it's purely whatever you prefer. I want to take a moment to thank everyone for following this journey. Your engagement and enthusiasm has really made this challenge infinitely more rewarding. The comments, suggestions, encouragement have all fueled my motivation to continue pushing the boundaries of what's possible in unconventional WoW gameplay. So with both professions maxed out and level 60 achieved, it's time for the next phase. We're heading to the Blasted Lands, where the ominous dark portal looms open. The Burning Legion waits beyond, along with alien landscapes full of new herbs and ores to discover. And the transition to Burning Crusade content represents more than just new zones. It's gonna be quite a shift up in challenge difficulty. The experience scaling is going to become a lot steeper, and I have no idea what kind of experience gains we can expect from gathering. I have a feeling things are going to get a lot harder from here, but that's exactly what makes this challenge exciting. Each expansion is going to force adaptation, optimisation, and some creative problem solving. The strategies that carried us through Classic won't necessarily work in Outland's new environments. Reaching level 60 through pure pacifist gameplay has represented a genuine achievement that most players would never even consider attempting. More importantly, we've discovered that unconventional gameplay can be just as rewarding, if not more so, than traditional leveling approaches. Every level has felt earned, every gold piece represents genuine effort, and every new zone provided authentic discovery rather than just rushing through our quest objectives. So here we stand, 60 levels down, 30 to go. Whilst the remaining levels represent fewer total levels, the experience requirements are going to scale exponentially. We still have a long journey ahead, but I'm really excited to explore Outland. But until then, go with peace, friend.